Okay, we're all set.
Judge. I was actually moving for the admission of number 3, Judge.
No objection.
Your Honor, there's some, I have to make a record on some. I'm not objecting, but this predates Paul being involved in this group whatsoever. But obviously, it is admissible.
Can we approach, Judge? Come on up. Thanks.
Your mic.
Okay, Mr. Kirkpatrick, it's noted that this does not apply to your client. Exhibit 3 is admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Put up exhibit 3, page 1 for me. All right, what are we looking at here generally before we start looking at individual little boxes?
Yes, so this is 2 separate screen captures of the Facebook search warrant return.
What's a
So
Facebook search warrant return?
so the Facebook search warrant return is this is a PDF document that Facebook provides in response to the search warrant after you did the affidavit and get signed by the government.
So they give you a bunch of records, right?
That's correct.
All right, and we're looking, is this how you get them?
No, so this is, I took a screen capture of the records and then I put 2 records side by side in using Microsoft PowerPoint.
Are those black boxes on the original records?
No, I put in the black boxes based on the pertinent things that relate to this trial.
Okay, so if you could, Agent Harris, go down to the bottom. Well, first, let me back up a little bit. We see a flag at the top. What is that?
This is the Boogaloo flag. So this is the profile picture at one time of the Wolverine Watchman Facebook page.
Okay, is that why it's in these records?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Can you zoom in on the bottom right-hand corner? Please? Use the laser pointer right now. Can you tell me what this is?
This is a post by Joe Morrison from November 25th, 2019.
Okay, and can you read it and tell us what it means?
Sure. Wolverine Watchmen is a group of patriots to network and assemble and recruit like-minded individuals, develop regional QRFs and squad tactics. Only add people you trust. No status, no FUDs, no bootlickers, and no cops or feds.
And this is similar to one of the rules of the group, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, and is there something concerning to you, or what is a QR? Tell us about a QR.
Quick response force or a quick reaction force. It's a team of individuals who are willing to train and respond armed to conflict
And where is that term usually used?
in the military.
Okay, and what are squad tactics?
SWAT tactics are team tactics with weapons.
Why is that any different than just tactics?
Well, moving with weapons and moving under fire is a specific skill and it's used in specific situations.
Okay, and is it used in the military?
Yes.
Thank you. You could zoom out of that and instead go up to zoom in on the two boxes on the left. Does your exhibit tell you, actually, you should, yeah, that's great. Thank you. Can you tell me about the box on the top?
Sure. So the top box is from November 25th, 2019. And it just says Joe Morrison created the group Wolverine Watchmen.
Okay. Can you tell me about the bottom box?
Sure. It's from November 26th, 2019. So the next day, it's a statement by Joe Morrison. I'll read it here. It says, "Well, boys, welcome to the Wolverine Watchmen. I
Can you stop
can't."
there? Why is boys spelled that way?
That's how Boogaloo
Jackson
Boys.
speculation.
Is that, I'll sharpen up the question. Thank you. BOIS, is that significant for any reason
Yes.
to you based on your training and experience?
Yeah. So based on my training, I recognize that as specific terminology used by members of the Boogaloo movement.
Okay, so what are Boogaloo boys?
Blue boys are participants or people who adhere to the Boogaloo movement.
Okay, thank you. So you read us the first line, keep going.
Well, boys, welcome to the Wolverine Watchmen. I can't stress this enough. Recruit, 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 but vet, vet, vet.
What is your understanding of what vetting means?
Vetting means to review and who is becoming a member of your group.
Okay, next line, please.
Do not need bad apples in the group. We need to establish regional QRFS. I am a unit commander for now, unless we find someone with more experience or knowledge. I will establish regional commanders as we grow. Right now,
There's a bunch of numbers. What is that?
that's the Facebook profile ID for Dave Norris. So Joe Morrison is tagging Dave Norris.
In
on
the
Facebook.
post.
Yes.
Okay, tagging, what does tagging mean?
Tagging means you're typing at somebody, so you're notifying them and making reference specific to their Facebook profile.
Okay, keep going.
You are in charge of your region and at James Palmer II, so he's tagging James Palmer II. You are in charge of yours. Report any major police, fed, or military movements to me.
Stop there for a second. What does that mean? Report any major police, fed, or military movements?
It's Joe Morrison.
Objection. Witness can't interpret the intent of the poster, Your Honor. He testifies as fact witness to what the exhibit says and to make an argument to the jury in the trial.
Can you lay any more foundation as to the basis for the interpretation?
Yeah. Let me just ask a different question, Judge, if you wouldn't mind. What is a military movement? Do you know?
Military movement would be a troop movement.
Okay, thank you. Keep going.
From there, we will decide how to respond. I will make a group on wire so everyone get it. It's more secure than FB,
What does FB stand for?
Facebook. This is for networking only. All planning will be through wire or face-to-face. So spread the word of liberty and grow the movement. Morte semper tyrannis, and long live the Republican. Long live the Republic. Boogaloo Bunyan out.
Do you know what Morte semper tyrannis means?
Yes, it's Latin for death to tyrants.
talked about administrators on Wire. Who are administrators of the Facebook group at this time?
That was Joe Morrison and Paul Bellar.
I'm sorry, I meant at this time, meaning
Oh, I'm
when the
sorry.
group was created.
That was Joe Morrison.
Thank you very much. Can you go to the next page of the exhibit, please? Page 2 of exhibit 3.
Yes. I have it here.
And Agent Harris, can you zoom into the box on the left? Can you tell me what you're seeing on page 2, exhibit 3?
Sure. This is a post from November 26, 2019 by Joe Morrison.
And what is he asking for here?
He states, everyone, let me know what county you are in and how you plan to recruit me and and then he tags Crystal Pete Musico are in Jackson County and looking at networking and possible flyers at local areas, nothing too specific.
And is this David Norris reply?
Yes,
Okay, and what does he say?
stated Shiawassee County here. I'm still working on the recruiting front. There's a larger group in our area that kind of holds a monopoly on getting people. I just posted a threat assessment for Shiawassee County as accurate as I could find info for. This is something I think all county leaders should look into and write up ASAP so we know what to look forward to.
Okay, you could zoom into the other box on that exhibit. Do you see the other box on that exhibit?
I do.
And does Joe Morrison ask something of Dave Norris?
Yes.
What does he ask?
Morrison stated, he tagged Dave Norris. One thing to add, railroads are still crucial. They will expect main roads to be targeted, but many things are still transported by rail. So we need railroad maps as well. They may be transported to tanks and MRAPs.
Now, what is a threat assessment? What does that mean?
Threat assessment, it's intelligence, it's tactical intelligence.
And when are threat assessments done in your field, your profession?
Where they're done when somebody is perceived to be a threat. So when somebody could harm you.
Okay, and who was Morrison asking about threat assessment for in these posts?
He's asking, Joe Morrison asks Dave Norris to do a threat assessment of military and law enforcement.
You could go to page 3, please. All right, I'm going to come back to this exhibit. What I want to ask you about Agent Blah is, let's see, what was, throughout the course of your investigation, you learned a lot of information about this group. Is that fair to say?
Yes,
Okay, and so by the end of the investigation, I'm talking now October of 2020, what was Mr. Bellar's role in the group?
in the Wolverine Watchman.
Yes.
So he was the leader of the Ghost Group, which is the QRF group that broke off. And then by that time, he had moved out of state.
Was he in leadership at any point?
Yes,
How about Mr. Morrison? Was he in leadership at any point?
yes, Mr. Morrison was the founding member and leader of the Wolverine Watchman.
How about Mr. Musico?
He was a leader of the Wolverine Watchman.
And what's the relationship between Mr. Morrison and Mr. Musico?
They have a family relationship. So Joe Morrison married Pete Musico's daughter.
Did they reside at the same location?
They did.
And where was that location?
That was in Munich, Michigan.
Is that on Dunn Road?
Yes,
The group, the Wolverine Watchmen, at just about every time that you were involved in the investigation of this group, they had five or more members,
yes.
all right? And were they a registered nonprofit corporation in the state of Michigan?
Not that I can find.
They have a name, a common name, sign, or symbol.
Yes,
Did they have a leadership or a command structure?
yes.
What can you tell me about that?
On June 3rd, they had a meeting in which they formalized their command structure.
Okay, when you say command structure, like what?
They had a commanding officer, and that was Joe Morrison. They had an executive officer, that was CHS Dan. And then they had sergeants. So Paul Bellar was one of the sergeants.
They assigned themselves ranks, is that fair to say?
Yes,
Kind of like what organization?
military.
And who was the actual leader? Who was the rank of the actual leader?
That was the commanding officer.
Okay, and who was that?
That was Joe Morrison.
It was not Dan Chappell?
That's correct.
Thank you. Did they have membership criteria?
Yes, they did.
Tell me about that.
They had a vetting process and they had a number of questions in which they would perform an interview online. And they would mainly get into the intent of why somebody wanted to join the group.
Did they allow police officers into the group?
No,
Did they allow federal agents into the group?
no,
Did they have other people that they would exclude from the group?
yes, if you were sympathetic to the military or law enforcement, if you didn't believe in tearing down the government, they would not allow you to be into the group.
And what about firearms owners? Did you have to have a firearm in order to be in the group?
No, you didn't have to have a firearm. You just needed to be willing to show up and train. So if somebody was willing to buy you a firearm or provide one or lend one, that was okay. But they did want people who had some weapons that they could provide for the group. Obviously, that helped with the firepower.
Did they enforce the criteria that they set to be a member?
Yes,
How?
well, multiple ways. First, through the vetting process. So as they were vetting people, they would do an interview and they would ask a prospective member about their intentions and their beliefs, their ideology. And then later, if people didn't show up to train but had been vetted and accepted into the group, they would purge the group. So if you didn't show up and you weren't as serious as you described during the vetting process, then you'd be kicked off the Wire platform. You'd be allowed to stay on Facebook, but you wouldn't be able to be a member of the encrypted communications.
So how did they do the vetting?
So they had a vetting chat and they had a leadership chat. So the leadership would do the vetting. And by leadership, I mean Paul Bellar and Joe Morrison. Mr. Musico was not involved in the vetting process and he wasn't involved in the leadership chat.
Okay,
So the leadership chat would notify the group that there was members to be vetted. And then they would go online onto the vetting chat and they would perform an online interview of sorts on the vetting chat with the prospective member. And then if that member had passed the vetting process, they would be added into the main chat and whatever other sub chats they wanted to be added into.
what kind of questions would they ask in this vetting process?
They would ask what type of weapons they had, what type of training and experience they had. They would ask, a common question was, are you willing to be considered a domestic terrorist in the near future?
Who would ask that kind of question?
Only Joe Morrison asked that question. I never saw Paul Bellar ask that question.
Did he ask it once? Did he ask it twice?
I stopped counting at about 14 times that he had asked it.
And tell me the question again.
Are you willing to be considered a domestic terrorist in the near future?
Tell us about what OPSEC is.
OPSEC is operational security. It's shorthand for that term.
And what does operational security mean?
Operational security is a way of compartmentalizing communications so that only those with the need to know have access to those communications.
And how do you employ operational security? Like, how do you use operational security?
Well, there's a number of different ways, but obviously using an encrypted communication system is one way. Vetting people and moving them from one platform to another is a way of doing operational security. Compartmentalizing different groups and different chats is a way of having operational security. Vetting people in person and only communicating face to face is another type of OPSEC. And then finally, training and just having a strict discipline to when you can communicate in risky manners is another way of having OPSEC.
Did these three defendants ever talk about operational security?
Yes, all three defendants constantly talked about OPSEC.
Did their operational security, what operational security did they employ?
So they use the vetting process to determine who is members of their group. They would use the encrypted chats to compartmentalize their communications. They would talk about using Facebook as a front and
Objection
having secure.
to the characterization of
Hold
the
on,
term
stop.
front. Objection to the characterization of the term front.
We have an exhibit, we'll get there, but he could save that for cross-examination, Judge. I mean, he's objecting to something the witness is saying. He has the ability to cross-examine his witness.
You also can reject if he's
A
got a
statement
valid
like
reason.
If he's
Yeah,
got, sure, I just
let's
haven't heard
up
one
there and
yet.
Just say whatever they want.
Sure, Judge, I just haven't heard one yet.
You're,
Foundation, and he can't interpret whether or not the Facebook page was a front. He can testify that they got moved from one page to another. When we start
Butter
to-
asked,
Yeah.
explore that some more with him.
Thank you, Judge, I will. Did any of these three defendants ever talk about the Facebook page that we saw being the front?
Yes, both Joe Morrison and Paul Bellar specifically used the term front and talked multiple times about how Facebook was just a front.
Okay, thank you. Did there, what about operational security during training events that we'll talk about later? What would they do there?
During training events, they would just refer to individuals by their wire handle or their username. So they'd use the alias as opposed to their real name.
And did operational security sometimes work to prevent reporting of trainings?
Oh, yes. They would pass around an ammo can or make users put their phones away before they do training or talk about things that they thought were risky. And so that would be a problem if we're trying to record the conversation.
Were there communications that you actually did not have eyes on of the group? Meaning, did you ever run into a situation where Dan didn't have access to something? Like, for instance, one of these defendants communicating with outside people?
Yes, so that occurred frequently. So Dan only had access to the Wolverine Watchman wire chats that he was allowed into. So for instance, I know there was a West Side wire chat and there was a North wire chat and there was other regional QRF wire chats that Dan wasn't part of. Also, there was other Facebook groups that Joe Morrison was part of that Dan wasn't part of. And then finally, there was just in-person communications that Dan wasn't privy to if they go inside the house or pull somebody aside to have a one-on-one conversation.
And based on your investigation, was this in fact a Boogaloo group?
Yes,
Okay, so what are the, tell me about that and how you know that.
sure. Well, first off, they said it was a Boogaloo group. They used the term Boogaloo. And then they used the uniform and the signs and symbols and terminology of the Boogaloo movement.
You told us a little bit about what the Boogaloo movement is, but can you tell us about the basic tenets or beliefs of it?
Sure. So the beliefs of the Boogaloo movement are that there's an imminent civil war in the United States that'll be happening in the near future. And that civil war, there's gonna be fighting on the streets and that you have to prepare for that.
Where does this word come from?
Comes from an old movie called The Electric Boogaloo in the 60s or 70s. And it's a play on that.
Okay. And are there visual images associated with the Boogaloo?
Yes.
Like what?
So the Hawaiian shirts, igloos. So an igloo and the big luau are terms that are close to the word boogaloo. And so even if the word boogaloo causes you to get taken down off Facebook, you can still use these other references that wouldn't get you taken off Facebook. So igloos, winter, anything cold, or Hawaiian themed, those became alternative references and to the Boogaloo amongst those who knew that language.
And was this classified by the FBI as an extremist ideology?
Yes, it is.
Does it advocate for violence that is dangerous to human life?
Yes, so the whole point of the Boogaloo is to attack the government through violence.
Advocate for terrorism?
Yes, it does.
And do you know, based on your review of Facebook records, of course, this investigation, do you know if these three individuals the defendants in this case promoted the Boogaloo ideology.
Yeah, so all three individuals promoted the Boogaloo ideology.
They do that,
multiple times.
I'm sorry, and did they do that personally on their own Facebook pages?
Yes,
Did they do that in the group's Facebook page, the Wolverine Watchmen?
yes.
Judge, I have a large amount of exhibits to admit, and I'm looking at the time, and I didn't know if you wanted me to start admitting those exhibits, Judge, or if you wanted me to, if this might be a natural place to end the day.
Sounds good to me. Everybody's been going all day. We'll start up at 9 o'clock tomorrow.
Thank you, Judge.
I appreciate it. Hey, I'm.